Small addendum to the last video I made. Unfortunately, during making of the last video, I got a phone call, and the phone call basically cut off my microphone. So when I started the next segment, the microphone was off. So you'll notice that there's like a 7 to 8 minute segment that lost its audio. And I'm not even going to bother trying to recover it because you pretty much can't. So what I will do instead is make this as a slight addendum, and I'm just going to make this relatively short. So basically, I was looking online, and they were saying that there's a possibility that we might see some stock splits coming up soon. Now, the one thing I want to say is after what I've observed over the last 5 years, a lot of these stock splits are basically there simply to try to pull in younger money. Stock splits typically don't change the value of the stock. But what they do, however, is they can increase the price of the stock as more people buy in. So what they basically do is they take a share, they split it, and they basically reduce the price of individual shares, but the shares don't actually lose their value. They just make it easier for more people to just buy in, right? So, what normally would have been a higher buy-in price, instead of the person just doing fractional investment and buying pieces of the share, they actually can get whole shares, and psychologically it's more palatable for them. So they're saying here in one of these articles, this is 2 weeks ago from the Motley Fool, they were talking about three stock split stocks due for another split. So the stocks that they were talking about were, there was a possibility that Microsoft, Adobe, and Booking Holdings could do a split. Now, Microsoft hasn't split their stock in a very long time. So they were saying Microsoft is overdue for a stock split. Now, right now, they're like, it's over $325. And right now, I don't think Microsoft has a cash flow problem, because the thing about it is Microsoft is pretty much worth over $2 trillion. They're behind Apple, but they are worth a lot of money. So I don't think they have a cash flow problem at all. I don't think they really have a reason that they need to split their stock, but there's always the possibility that they could do it just in case they wanted to, bring in new blood, bring in new investors. Because I would say that most investors now, when they buy these stocks, they're holding them. Most people aren't playing the options market. So, what is this saying? They says they had a 2-for-1 split that came in February 2003. I was actually involved in that split. And it says only 3 years into the Steve Ballmer era. Since then, Microsoft shares have soared more than 2,000. Because, see, I actually had Microsoft stock before 2000. But I had it like somewhere around 1999. But the 2000, and as you know, I hold my stocks. I don't really, I don't sell them, and I don't do options. So the thing about it is they're saying Microsoft shares have soared more than 2,000%. When it comes to fundamentals, Microsoft looks as strong today as ever before. Yeah, Microsoft is a pretty powerful company, and as you know, they're swimming in cash. They have over $2 trillion. Let's see. Then they talk, what is this? Following its wonderful quarter, Microsoft market cap now stands at an astounding 2.53 trillion. That puts it close to catching Apple, whose 2.68 trillion market cap puts it as America's largest public company. Now, Apple, I like to, talk about Apple as a $3 trillion company, but because the stock fell in value, they lost that 3 trillion mark. Even though they hit 3 trillion, they couldn't stay there. But I'm pretty sure they'll be back. It's not that hard for Apple to make, let's say, what is that, $400 million? I don't think it's that hard for them to do that. All they got to do is maybe release, a couple of really attractive products, and they'll be right there. What else? There's Adobe. Now, I'm not really into Adobe, and I don't really know much about their actual stock. I'm not in it. It says it's trading at more than $500 per share. So Adobe, and they make a lot of, necessary software and whatnot. It says Adobe has split its stock 6 times since its founding in the 1980s. Now, if Adobe had a stock split, I would definitely buy into it. Now, if it's currently at $500 per share, my guess is if they did a stock split, they'd probably try to make individual shares under $100. I would probably buy into that. I'd probably drop $1,000 into that, maybe. Of course, you also have to remember, it doesn't matter if there's a stock split coming. It doesn't matter if you buy one share and then wait for the split, or if you wait for the split and buy one share. The problem is if the value starts increasing before the stock split, which it probably will because, more people start buying in. The problem is the value of that one share can go up to a point where you don't want to buy it any longer. And when it does finally split, if the value doesn't decline, you could now be facing a higher individual shares than you would have if you had just bought it in the first place. So, there's always that, but you never know what's going to happen. So the problem is there's always that to consider. Then there's Will Healy, Booking Holdings. And this stock split history of Booking Holdings differs from most stocks that have split in the past. The former Priceline.com was a high flyer during the dot-com boom and went on to lose nearly all its value. Company management was uncomfortable with the situation and instituted a 1-for-6 reverse split in 2003. The strategy worked, perhaps too well. By 2013, the price had surpassed the 1,000 per share level. Although it has traded in a range over the previous 5 years, today's price of over $2,800 per share makes it the fourth most expensive stock trading on U.S. exchanges today. So that's actually really interesting. I've witnessed reverse splits before that I've actually been involved in. I think there was one recently, if I'm not mistaken. I think GameStop did. No, you know who did it? It was AMC. Because after the Redditors and the apes, after they got finished screwing around and they realized they weren't going to make their money back that they lost, both GameStop and AMC did. I believe it was AMC that did a reverse split, and I think GameStop did a split, if memory serves. Now, the stock that I was really interested in was Tesla. Now, as you've seen, Tesla is heavily shorted by options traders. Now, this story was only 1 week old. They were talking about the fact that it's possible that we could see another stock split in 2024. So they're saying they were talking about Tesla stock split history. They split it the first time in 2020, and that was 5-for-1. And then they split it again 2022, and that was 3-for-1. So if you had even one share of Tesla prior to the first split, because the price of Tesla skyrocketed during 2020, and obviously that's because there were so many people gambling their stimmy checks, and there were so many people who were sitting at home with nothing to do except try to dream up ways to get rich. So the reality is Tesla split twice. Now, there's a good possibility that it could split again because you got to remember the Cybertruck's coming. They have a brand new Model 3 Highland coming. Chances are they're going to have a Model Y redesign coming within the next 2 years to follow the Model 3. And I really foresee the value of Tesla increasing considerably. A lot of these car companies are stepping back from electric cars. Now, and I'd like to just say, I've mentioned this before, America started a trade war with China. America also started a trade war and an oil embargo with Russia. The reality is, part of the reason why it's so difficult to even make these electric cars is because America basically started trade wars with the people who are supplying you with the parts. Russia was supplying sheet metal. That's something that I learned when I was talking to a Mercedes-Benz dealership. You had Russia supplying sheet metal. You've got China supplying the batteries and a lot of these components and this, that, and other, not to mention all of the, the electronics and stuff that you need to put in these cars. So the reality is, if you're going to start a trade war with these people, yeah, you're going to pretty much have to expect that the cost of manufacturing anything that you needed the parts and components from these places, you're going to have to expect the prices are going to go up. And that's just, that's basic economics. But if Tesla does a stock split, first of all, I already have Tesla shares that are just sitting there and I'm not touching them. But I would probably buy more Tesla. Like Tesla is one of those stocks. I was hoping that SpaceX would have a spinoff. And I was hoping SpaceX would have like an IPO, because if SpaceX had an IPO, I definitely want to buy into that. But so far, I haven't heard anything about SpaceX doing an IPO. So my thinking is, if Tesla does another stock split, in addition to the shares I already have, I would definitely buy more. Now, regardless if I buy more or not, the stock split is going to increase the number of shares I have. But I would still invest more in Tesla, because in the long run, Tesla is extremely valuable as a company. They're making backup batteries for cities. They're making, the all types. I mean, they have all types of stuff moving. Again, I really would like to be able to buy SpaceX, but unfortunately I can't, because they don't have an IPO. They don't have a stock. So, for right now, the only way to invest is to just invest in Tesla. Again, I can't see myself buying any of their cars, because I'm not really impressed with the cars yet. I don't know what they'll look like when they, actually upgrade them. But I could definitely buy their stock, definitely, because I made a lot of money off their stock since 2012. And if there's a possible stock split coming, that would be really cool, because that would, if they do another 3-for-1, or if they do a 2-for-1, that would be really nice for my portfolio. So basically, that was really all I was thinking about. I can't think of anybody else who I could imagine doing a split, because Amazon did it split 20-1. Google did it split 20-1. And, I bought in as much as I could. I have over 100 shares now of Amazon. I have over 100 shares now of Google. And that's a pretty big chunk of change. But, that's because of the split. See, basically all you had to do was have 5 shares of Amazon, 5 shares of Google, and then when it multiplied by 20, now you got 100. It's amazing, to be able to do stuff like that, to be able to have a little bit of money ready for one of these stock splits to happen. So my thinking is, I haven't really heard anything about any other company talking about doing a stock split. If I do hear something about it, obviously I'll make a video about it if it's something that I deem that's worthy of buying into. But you should definitely have money ready. My guess is, if anybody does any stock splits, what they'll do is they'll wait for somewhere around April. And the reason why is because, just like you've seen over the last 5 years, they're getting your tax returns. And that's actually not a bad idea, because when you really think about it, there's a lot of people who would normally take their tax returns, blow it on fentanyl or opium or heroin or something. Why do that when you could, risk it in the stock market? If you wait until April, or you wait until, like, say, May or June for when people are going to get paid that tax return money, there's always a good possibility that they'll take a large chunk of that and they'll just drop it into the stock market. So for these companies that want to, do stock splits, these companies that want to increase the number of investors in their company, it actually makes a lot of sense to wait until that time. As you saw with Apple and Tesla, and you saw back with NVIDIA, during that pandemic, what they had done was they basically waited until tax returns. And not only that, they also timed those stock splits for the stimulus checks too. So I think the worst split that I've participated in, ironically, was Amazon and Google, because if you remember, they did their stock split right as Russia was invading Ukraine, and that crashed like the entire market, or at least a large percent of the tech market. So, again, we never know exactly what's going to happen. All you can do is, All you can do is just put money in, invest, and just hope for the best. That's all you can really do. But again, with the dividend paying stocks, you can't really go wrong, because while your money's sitting there, even if the value of the company goes down temporarily, you're still collecting the dividend. So for each share that you hold, you're still collecting the dividend, even if the value of your money in there hasn't appreciated. And that's just it. That's the game. So that's all I really had to say. I wasn't going to make this video too long. I kind of just made this as an addendum, because I lost 8 minutes due to that microphone error. So it's not a big deal. But I'll try to be more careful in the future, and I'll try to make sure that doesn't happen. But it never fails. Whenever I try to start doing something for myself, or just whenever it's nice and quiet and I want to just start making videos, or if I want to do something, all of a sudden I start getting phone calls. It never, ever fails. All of a sudden it'll be a phone call. And if it's not a phone call, somebody just calls me. They just want to talk. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You mean to tell me you couldn't have done that while I was in traffic? And even when I'm in traffic, I'm just trying to listen to my music. And that's when I'll get the phone call. It's just amazing. It's like, your time, people are jockeying for positions for your time. It's just amazing. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say. So I'm just going to stop this here. So hopefully this makes up for that little 8-minute microphone error.